What about a person or their belongings says to you I'm poor but trying to be pretendric? A giant purse but jeans have those awful appliques on the back pockets. Usually hair in a messy bun. Source: I work in a bank. I can see your account is 45 days overdrawn. Brittany. Bragging about high paying jobs or money. The richest people I know might have a nice house or a decent car. But rarely do they talk about their money or brag about how much they make. The ones to seem to brag about money also seem to not have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I know this isn't always the case, but it seems to apply most of the time to me. Overly expensive clothing and accessories. Great. You have the new iPhone. Your outfit is cute. And you only dine at the trendiest restaurants. Meanwhile your car is falling apart. Your tiny apartment is a mess. And you're up to your neck in credit card debt. I realized this when I bought my radar detector. Nobody cares that it is top of the line. Nobody cares I even have one. I don't care about other people's phones. In the end, from an old person point of view, it is about who is closest enough to a comfortable retirement. I know a dude. He has gone back to work 3 times out of boredom. He is planning his next retirement. But if the job ducked him he would walk out that minute with both middle fingers up. That is true wealth. BTW he is 47. LV bags that say LV 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 LV. I had a high school teacher whose love for Louis Vuitton bordered on a fetish. Heck. It probably was. He had loads of their monogrammed stuff. So we were shocked when he arrived at school with what appeared to be a plain black leather bag. That day, our class learned that style is looking good. Not blaring logos. And you pay a whole lot more to get a whole lot less. Having all the latest gadgets and eating out all the time and the latest makeup and clothing. But complaining you can't afford to pay for your son to play a season of soccer. People who spend their money on things they want instead of things they need. X. Jewelry. This guy I knew let the oil go bad in his car and delayed a $3,000 fix because he wanted to be iced out with his stupid jewelry. He later moved into an RV with some girl he met at a club and relied on her to pay the bills, transport him, and feed him. Lol. Bum. We're talking a lot about this currently in sociology. Typically members of lower class look for louder signals, big logos, flashy jewelry, etc. to display their wealth, whereas the extremely wealthy look for quiet signals, little to no visible logos, expensive but modestly sized jewelry, etc. You'd think it's the other way around, but poor people like to appear as though they have money more than rich people do. Rich people tend to be more modest. This isn't always the case though. Cough Trump cough cough. Edit, I can't spell. Wearing really tacky expensive clothes is the #1 indicator to me. Especially if they post it all over Instagram. The richest person I know, he has appeared on the Sunday Times rich list a few times. Easily has 50+ million in the bank, was standing in a fast food place next to me a few weeks ago wearing jeans that had holes in them, not those trendy ones you pay money for. These were more from being around his property and getting them caught on barbed wire that were covered in mud. A barber jacket that had more patchwork than original material, and a rugby shirt that must be well over 10 years old. He looked like someone had thrown him into a charity shop reject bin, and whatever clothing stuck to him he got to wear. He collects his order, walks out and hops into his brand new Bentley. The really rich people most of the time couldn't give a shit what they wear. The people who want to seem rich and try to keep up the illusion that they are rich will always wear clothes that help keep that illusion up. Wearing t-shirts or caps by brands like Armani Jeans, CK and Boss Orange. They're the least costly items from the least costly lines that these big fashion houses put out. And they're always the items with the biggest logos. Constantly telling everyone about their place in Florida. Turns out it's a timeshare he got suckered into. Timeshare in general says a lot. I can't stop laughing when I stay at my parents' timeshare in Kauai and there are all these douchebags in sandals with socks wandering around introducing themselves as owners. carries a $3,000 high-end name brand purse, but drives a 7-year-old Kia and lives in an apartment with a roommate. If you think a 7-year-old Kia is a bad car, the average age of cars in my country is about 15 years old. Most people I know have late 90s cars. I get annoyed when people suggest buy a 2-year-old second-hand car as your first vehicle. Super fake luxury purses. I really don't understand why people do this. A new real LV or Hermes bag can be $10,000. $10,000. You want strangers to think you spent that much on a bag? You're on the bus. I'm on the bus. Just why? Clearly majority of this thread feels that spending money on anything but the cheapest possible thing makes you a wannabe rich welfare recipient. Many people that are well off have a passion for fashion. Others are car enthusiasts. Some prefer a minimalistic style and have a small apartment. Who gives a duck? Everyone prioritizes their funds differently based on their preference, so rarely will you have someone who fits the cookie cutter rich person stereotype. A lot of you need to understand that, and I can't stress that enough. Are you rich yourself? No? Then how would you have any idea what all rich people do? However, I agree that the vast majority of people that do flaunt their wealth are drowning in debt trying to keep up with and or impress everyone else. Largely depending on your location, of course. All the outward appearance of wealth, nice cars, designer clothes and accessories, expensive vacations. But then when shit hits the fan medically, they don't have insurance and ask friends, family to help them out. Gold plated, gem encrusted, logo brand plastered anything. It's an easy way to jog up a price, but that doesn't give it true quality value. It's a red flag that the owner is trying to show off a bit, since it's literally painted just for that purpose. Knockoff handbags. How so? I am a fan of good analog watches because even a fraction of a degree of one gear could be off ever so slightly. It could lead to minutes a day. Even seconds. Those seconds could add up over a year's. What does one handbag do that another doesn't with slightly different C's? Oh, for me, it's just tacky. But I personally find the real ones tacky too. Bags like this remind me of white trash girls from high school who thought they were hot shit. Beats by Dren. Know a guy from college who flaunted his new Beats everywhere he went and always managed to weasel it in any conversation, no matter how irrelevant it seemed. Also, when the newest Samsung phone at the time got out, he bought it almost immediately and asked for our numbers because he changed SIMs. After asking for our numbers, he'd then go about flaunting it and trying to get us to admire his brand new phone. It doesn't help that he has an extremely punchable face. He got mugged a couple of years ago and had all his gadgets stolen from him. Can't say people felt sorry for him. Style is a personal thing. But if someone's style is ostentatious and they brag about it, especially about its cost or extravagance, it means they are profoundly insecure about it. Usually people who are trying to show off aren't that wealthy, as some of them actually are. Trump. They buy a slip-on shoe made by Michael Kors that costs about $125. When Vans makes the same shoe and it costs about half of that. Decked out car with the loudest sound system. It screams I live with my mom or I mooch off of my girlfriend. Same thing with lifted trucks and ridiculously expensive tires, rims on a commuter vehicle. Adults driving a BMW or Mercedes but renting a small apartment. Does not compute. A lot of rich people live modestly but have their pleasures like BMWs or Mercs. Look at Tim Cook. Rich off his tits but lives in a 2-bedroom condo on an unassuming road. I know a guy who pulls in $250,000 a year, but lives in a vintage S-trim trailer. Granted, it's pimped out and completely renovated, that he inherited from his family. He likes taking off on a Thursday evening and hitting the road with it till Sunday, back to a spot that rents for $200 a month from a farmer about 20 miles from his office. Going to the Cheesecake Factory. I have some wealthy relatives that go to the Cheesecake Factory because they actually love the food. They don't consider it a swanky establishment by any means. They told me that some of their friends refuse to go there with them lol. Always talking about their wealth or the things they own. I'm not saying you can't talk about it with people if the topic comes up. But if something along the lines of, let's go get food. Okay. We can go in my new Mercedes? Randomly and openly talking about it is kinda just showing your insecurities of not having money and trying to prove to others that you have money for those kinds of things. I also find that people who talk bad about others because of money usually don't have a lot of money themselves either. They just want to be around wealth to look like wealth. Constantly bragging about their high-end products. My old boss would lease top-of-the-line vehicles and high-end homes, neither he couldn't afford. He would brag about them and make everyone feel like they are beneath him. Last time I checked, he can't even afford to pretend to be rich anymore and his gold-digging wife left him. Meanwhile, the legit rich people I know never flaunt their wealth because money doesn't really mean much to them. They are just whatever about their wealth. People who brag about how much money they make but at the same time complain about not having enough money. Or people who outright lie about how much money they make. My assistant manager swore up and down to everyone that while the higher ups were looking for a replacement manager, she was making both her paycheck and the manager's paycheck. No accounting department in the world would be so dumb as to pay one person 2 paychecks. She also tried to push the idea that despite the fact that she had zero experience when she was hired that she was somehow offered more money than the base pay that everyone gets. Oh. And the kicker is that she's still on food stamps and has admitted that she lies to get more benefits. A super high-spec gaming PC that they don't have any games for. A really nice car that always sits under a cover in a garage. A really nice firearm in a cool caliber that they never shoot. Essentially, anything really nice that never gets used indicates fake rich. Because it means they want it to look new and shiny as long as possible. And they can't afford to use it either. I may be on an alternative side to this point. But I am a college student who lives on her own. Pays for my own education. And I strive to be independent, struggling, but others scoff at me because my parents gifted me a newish car. Prior to the new car, I was driving a 29-year-old Volvo that took me from point A to point B and no one cared. When Tesco and Asda brought out their own range of budget foods, they were marketed towards people with no little money. When they looked at who was buying them, it was people that could afford the more luxury goods, but didn't want to spend the money on it when they could buy the cheaper stuff. The people who would have been better off buying the cheaper stuff didn't want people to think that was all they could afford. So they'd pay more. The engagement rings that almost look like a big centered diamond. But it's actually just 4 tiny diamonds separated by very thin settings. The only purpose of the ring is for it to look like it's very expensive. But it's not. It's the engagement ring version of the McMansion. I often find that the larger design a name stamped on an item, the more likely that person is to not be rich. Louis Vuitton purse knockoffs. Michael Kors sold at Macy's or TJ Maxx. Wearing Beats headphones around your neck when you're not even listening to music. Non-famous rich people don't really flaunt brands like this. But you don't know that. So look at me. I have honestly found the higher quality, more expensive items in the world tend to have minimalist if any brand labeling on the outside. When people brag about how much money they make, society often thinks a high salary is synonymous with wealth. That is simply not the case. How you handle your money is of greater importance than how much you make. Once friended with guy who works for bank and deals with very rich people. Mentioned that better someone dressed the poorer he was. More money you have, less you pretend or try to show it, and you come to a beating in whatever you want. He once signed very big paper in his client's chicken booth. Client wearing Wellington boots and farmer's overalls. Venti frappuccinos and coffees from Starbucks all the time. When they feel the need to name drop expensive brands they wear without being asked. I go from thinking wow that guy dresses nice to oh he is just making a deliberate effort to come off as impressive. Which is really tacky. You know those guys who have some shitty speaker with them when they are with friends and just play their rap music out loud whilst she and their friends are just spazzing out and singing along whilst being the most annoying pieces of shit possible. Yeah, those guys. Bonus points if the song is about having a lot of money. From personal experience. My stepfather made great money. 200k plus a year. Easily. Somehow he blew it all on dumb shit. And golf. He spent thousands on a huge house. An Escalade. And Mercedes Benz. All while borrowing money from our actually rich friends. Grew up in a small, broke town. It's one of those places where you tell yourself you'll work for a year after HS graduation and then go to college. But 1 year later you don't have enough money. So you'll say you'll go in the spring. But you get the idea. iPhones. Seems to perpetually have a Starbucks cup. Tends to be a popular kid. The girls wear a hipster style and tons of denim. These are the girls with denim jackets with iron-on rose patches. The guys are those guys who make sure they look good but also are super obsessed with strength and physical fitness. Calves.